Imagine biting into a sweet piece of chocolate and realizing it carries a bitter truth. Behind the world's chocolate industry lies a hidden story of child labor, unfair wages, and broken promises. But one brand dared to take a stand, calling out an entire industry and building a $216 million empire in the process. This is the story of Tony Chocolonely, the company that turned ethics into an empire. The chocolate industry is massive, worth more than $100 billion worldwide. It is built on a global addiction to sweet treats, yet at its core lies a darker reality. For decades, cocoa farmers in West Africa who supply the majority of the world's beans have been trapped in poverty. Millions of children work in hazardous conditions, harvesting cocoa with little pay and no protection. Big chocolate companies have long pledged to clean up supply chains, but the exploitation has continued. For many, chocolate remains a guilty pleasure in more ways than one. Enter Toine van de Koekan, a Dutch journalist who simply wanted to tell the truth. In 2003, he launched a television investigation into the chocolate trade. Shocked by the industry's reliance on child labor, he took an unusual step. Toine ate a chocolate bar on live television, then reported himself to the authorities as a criminal, guilty of benefiting from slavery. His dramatic protest made headlines, but more importantly, it planted the seed for a new kind of chocolate company. In 2005, Toine and his team launched Tony Chocolonely. The name was a play on his nickname, Tony, and his sense of being lonely in the fight against an industry unwilling to change. From the start, the mission was bold: to make 100% slave-free chocolate the norm, not just for Tony, but for the entire industry. The company didn't want to be another ethical brand on the sidelines. It wanted to expose the system, disrupt it, and prove that fairness and profitability could go hand in hand. Tony Chocolonely didn't look like a traditional chocolate bar. Its packaging was loud, bright, and impossible to ignore. Instead of smooth, even squares, the chocolate bar was divided into uneven chunks, symbolizing the unequal distribution of wealth in the chocolate industry. Every design choice was a statement. This was not just chocolate. This was activism wrapped in foil. The company's approach was different from the ground up. While big chocolate companies bought beans through middlemen, keeping farmers at the bottom of the chain, Tony Chocolonely partnered directly with cooperatives in Ghana and Ivory Coast. They paid a higher price for cocoa, above the fair trade premium, ensuring that farmers earned enough to live with dignity. They also invested in long-term relationships, committing to 5-year contracts so farmers had stability and security. But Tony Chocolonely did more than just buy cocoa. It built a model that was meant to be copied. The company called it the Tony's Open Chain, a system that laid out 5 sourcing principles: traceable beans, higher prices, stronger farmers, long-term partnerships, and quality productivity. These principles were not trade secrets. They were openly shared with competitors. The logic was simple. If Tony was serious about ending exploitation, it could not do it alone. The industry had to change as a whole. The boldness paid off. In the Netherlands, Tony Chocolonely grew from a niche protest brand to the #1 chocolate company. Its colorful bars became symbols of conscious consumerism. People wanted chocolate that tasted good and did good. Soon, the brand expanded beyond Europe, entering the UK, the US, and other markets. The message was clear. Ethical chocolate was not just a dream. It was a business model with global appeal. Still, the path was not without challenges. The cocoa industry is vast, and child labor remains deeply entrenched. Even Tony Chocolonely has faced criticism. Reports surfaced showing that despite their efforts, child labor still occurred among farmers in their supply chain. The company was transparent about these findings, admitting that the problem could not be eliminated overnight. Instead of hiding, Tony used the data to show just how systemic the issue remained. Unlike other companies, they didn't claim to be perfect. They claimed to be working toward real change. By 2022, Tony Chocolonely had grown into a $216 million empire. Not bad for a brand that started as a protest. But the success was not measured only in dollars. The brand's influence was shifting conversations across the industry. Big players like Mars could no longer ignore the demand for ethical sourcing. Consumers were beginning to ask harder questions. Who picked the beans in my chocolate bar? Were they paid fairly? Was child labor involved? Tony Chocolonely's growth was also fueled by its bold marketing. The brand never shied away from calling out hypocrisy. In 2021, they released a campaign titled Sweet Solution, producing look-alike bars styled after major brands like Kit Kat, Toblerone, Ferrero, Rocher, and Milka. Each bar carried the Tony principles, highlighting how the giants could choose to adopt fair practices but didn't. It was controversial, but it worked. The campaign sparked debate, lawsuits, and massive media coverage. Consumers are connected with honesty. Tony Chocolonely was not polished to perfection. It was messy, loud, and outspoken, just like the problem it was trying to solve. This authenticity made it one of the most trusted chocolate brands in Europe and beyond. So what does the future hold for Tony Chocolonely? The company continues to push for wider adoption of its open chain model. Already, other brands have joined, including Ben & Jerry's and Albert Heijn, the Dutch supermarket giant. Each new partner brings the vision closer to reality, but the mission is bigger than chocolate. At its heart, Tony Chocolonely represents a movement that says business can be built on ethics, not exploitation. That profit does not have to come at the expense of people. That consumers have the power to demand better. The $216 million empire is proof of what happens when courage meets strategy. From a journalist's protest to a global brand, Tony Chocolonely has shown that a sweet treat can carry a serious message. And yet, the fight is not over. Child labor in cocoa remains widespread. Poverty still drives families to desperate choices. The road to 100% slave-free chocolate is long. But Tony Chocolonely has lit the spark. It has proven that one voice, even a lonely one, can inspire millions. That one brand, armed with ethics and determination, can shake an empire. And that sometimes the sweetest victories come not from sugar, but from justice. As you take your next bite of chocolate, remember this. Every bar tells a story. Some tell stories of exploitation. Others tell stories of hope. Tony Chocolonely has chosen its story. The question is, what story will you choose to support? In the end, this is not just about chocolate. It is about the future of business, the power of transparency, and the courage to confront injustice head-on. Tony Chocolonely may be a $216 million empire, but its true legacy lies in sparking a global movement. Because when an empire is built on ethics, it doesn't just feed your sweet tooth, it feeds your conscience, giving us a gentle reminder that real success is not just about how much you earn, but about how much good you leave behind.